A lot to unpack here. Let me turn to Scot Schraufnagel. He's a professor of political science at Northern Illinois University. Professor, let me begin with what you think Vice President Kamala Harris can do in her role in protecting voting rights.
Well, she has to try to get the bill passed through the Senate. And that, as you noted, it will be a tough order. It needs 60 votes. Minus, the sufficient votes to kill a filibuster, you would have to do away with a filibuster and perhaps pass it with just a simple majority. But even that, it's not clear that there would be 51 votes.
So you've got Georgia, Texas, Florida, Arizona, Iowa, to name a few. So many Republican-led state legislatures have either passed restrictive voting rights, voting laws, I should say, or trying to. Now, can you explain to us some of these laws? Do they actually make it harder for communities of color to vote? How does it do that? And what would you say to Republicans who say this is all about election integrity?
Yeah, so there's a lot to unpack there, but there is clearly it's possible to write voting laws that will demobilize and keep people from voting. The generic sort of ease of voting laws like early voting or mail-in voting, it's not clear that they will do much in the way of, first of all, creating a partisan advantage. There's no real good evidence that Democrats are more likely than Republicans outside of the 2020 pandemic election to want to vote early or vote by mail. That happened in 2020, and the impression has been created that this is the Democrats' favored way to vote. But when these laws were first being proposed, it was Democrats that were more concerned because they thought Republicans from higher socioeconomic status would be more likely to be able to take advantage of these alternative means of voting. In terms of election integrity, all of these types of changes, if election integrity or preventing fraud was the primary motive, then you would probably want to go to all mail voting and early voting. Now you could have partisan officials in the room opening each ballot and checking it for accuracy and eligibility and so forth. These sort of ease of voting laws that are under attack actually have great potential to prevent fraud.
Interesting. So let me get this straight. Are you at all concerned with what's happening in these Republican states with their state legislature and what they're trying to do?
Well, yes and no. I mean, initially in Georgia, the laws, were written in a way that were proposed, didn't pass, that, would restrict early voting on Sundays. A very thinly veiled attempt to disenfranchise African Americans in the state. The law that ended up passing in Georgia probably doesn't have much of an effect. Montana and Iowa, reducing the number of early voting days and so forth, those will have an impact and they will hurt voter turnout. It's not clear, though, that they will benefit one party more than the other. In some respects, Iowa benefited tremendously from the spike in voter turnout that occurred in 2020, and the Republicans in the state did really well. And now that the state legislature is trying to restrict voting and decrease voter turnout, it's like shooting themselves in the foot. It could easily backfire on them.
Very quickly, we're running out of time. If you could explain to us what is at stake here.
What is there, what?
What's at stake?
Oh, at stake is democracy. Is the quality of democracy, the legitimacy of elections. And, around the world, right, there is political instability associated with illegitimate elections, right? And the U.S. is not immune.